27 years old, and until about 6 months ago, I thought I had life figured out. I had my boyfriend Matthew, I had my best friend since middle school, Lena. Together, the three of us felt unshakable, like a little chosen family. Matthew was steady, warm eyes, a voice that could ground me when the world felt too loud. Lena was the opposite, bright, bold, reckless, the type of woman who could walk into a room and bend it toward her. And me, I was the quiet one, the one who liked evenings in small groups, meaningful talks. Somehow with them, the balance just worked, or at least I thought it did. We spent weekends piled on my couch watching movies until we drifted asleep. Lena would tease Matthew about his predictable taste in films, and he'd fire back that she was secretly sentimental, always crying at the sad parts. I'd sit between them laughing, feeling grateful. At dinners, Lena's wild stories filled the silence. Matthew and I would exchange looks, the kind that said, "She's impossible, but we love her anyway." I remember one night in particular after a friend's wedding. We were drunk, messy, sprawled across my tiny living room. Matthew was singing along badly to some old song Lena was twirling in my kitchen with a wine glass, and I just sat there, my chest full. This is it, I thought. This is my family. But the thing about families, even chosen ones, is that they can rot from the inside without you noticing. At first, it was little things. Lena's digs at me. "God, Isa, you take forever to decide." Matthew, "Don't you wish she'd just pick a movie instead of scrolling for hours?" She'd laugh as if it were harmless, and Matthew would smile awkwardly, not defending me, but not stopping her either. Or Lena, buying Matthew a drink when I was in the bathroom. I'd come back to find him holding a glass of whiskey, and Lena would wink. "Don't worry, Isa, I've got your man covered." I'd laugh it off because Lena was Lena, flirtatious, playful, and Matthew was mine. Right? Then Matthew began echoing her, phrases I'd never heard from him before. "Why can't you just be more decisive, Isa?" Or Lena says, "You've got to live a little." She's right, always. Lena says, Lena says, Lena says. At first, I shrugged it off. Best friends rub off on each other. But there were nights when I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, a knot forming in my stomach. Was I losing them both without even realizing it? One evening, I gathered my courage and spoke to Lena at the gym where she spent most of her evenings. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "Could you maybe feel weird?" She froze, dumbbell in hand, and gave me a smile too sharp to be friendly. "Weird," she repeated, almost laughing. "Issa, relax. You're paranoid. If you're so insecure, that's your issue, not mine." The way she said it sliced right through me. My best friend, my sister in everything but blood, wasn't even pretending to care. I left the gym that night with a chill crawling up my spine. Still, I told myself I was imagining things, that Matthew loved me, that Lena was just being Lena. But deep down in the pit of my stomach, a truth whispered, "She doesn't want to stand beside you, Issa. She wants to stand in your place." I ignored it. I pushed it down. And that silence, the silence of ignoring your instincts, was the beginning of everything unraveling. The cracks widened faster than I could patch them. Matthew began quoting Lena more often, like her voice had slipped inside his. I told myself it was harmless, but every time he said "Lena says," something in me bristled. It wasn't jealousy, it was displacement, like I was slowly being written out of my own story. Then came David's birthday party. Loud music, flashing lights, bodies pressed together in a crowded club. Places like that drained me. But Lena thrived in them, and Matthew wanted to celebrate. I tried to stick it out, but by midnight a migraine pounded behind my eyes. I leaned in, whispering to Matthew, "I'm going to head out. Will you come with me?" He glanced at Lena across the dance floor and shook his head with a soft smile. "You go ahead, Issa. I'll make sure Lena gets home." Something about the way he said it, like I was already an afterthought. But I nodded, kissed him goodnight, and left. My last glimpse was of Lena grabbing his arm, tugging him back into the lights. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. I sat up, groggy headache still lingering. Notifications piled up, texts, DMs, group chats. Every message linked the same thing, a video from the party. My thumb hovered before pressing play, and then the world tilted. On the screen, in grainy neon light, Lena's back was pressed against Matthew's chest. His hands gripped her waist, pulling her closer. She tilted her head back, laughing into his ear as her body moved with his. It wasn't playful, wasn't innocent. It was hunger brazen and intimate. The music in the video roared, but all I could hear was the deafening thud of my own heartbeat. I replayed it once, twice, a dozen times, each loop carved deeper into me. The girl in that video wasn't my best friend anymore. The man wasn't my boyfriend. They were strangers. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. A strange cold calm took over, as if my body knew that if I broke now, I would never stop breaking. I showered, dressed, drove to Matthew's apartment, our apartment. My hands were steady on the wheel, though my chest felt hollowed out. He was on the couch in sweatpants, scrolling through his phone. When I walked in, he smiled absently. Hey, Issa. I didn't answer. I held up my phone. The video froze mid-frame, Lena's head tipped back. Matthew's hand digging into her hip. His face drained of color. Issa, it's not. Don't! My voice came out flat foreign to me. It was just dancing, he insisted, sitting up straighter. God, Isa, don't be so dramatic. You left early. You don't understand. Not another word. For a moment, silence stretched between us. He looked at me like he expected me to yell, to cry, to beg. Instead, I walked into the bedroom, pulled out my duffel bag, and began packing. Jeans, shirts, toothbrush, passport, the essentials. Not the frame photos, not the trinkets we collected together. Those belonged to another life. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed, confusion twisting into fear. That's it. You're just leaving. I zipped the bag, slung it over my shoulder, paused long enough to meet his eyes. Congratulations, I said softly. You're free from all the boredom. His mouth opened, then closed. He didn't follow me as I walked past. I didn't slam the door, didn't look back. When I slid into my car, the weight of silence pressed down, but for the first time in months, it was mine. As I drove away, one thought burned steady. Lena hadn't just stolen Matthew. She'd stolen the illusion I'd built around both of them. And maybe she always wanted to. The motel room smelled faintly of bleach and old smoke. A humming air conditioner rattled in the corner, the only sound filling the silence I had carved for myself. I didn't cry. That surprised me. I expected tears, the kind that come in heaving waves. But there was nothing. Just a hollow space inside my chest, as though someone had scooped me out and left the shell behind. I spent the first night staring at the ceiling, replaying the video over and over in my head, not because I missed Matthew or Lena, but because I couldn't understand how I had missed it. How had I let myself trust so blindly? The next morning I acted. Small, deliberate actions, because control was the only thing I had left. I pulled my phone onto the scratchy motel bedspread and opened Matthew's contact. Block. Lena's too. Block. Then Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat. Gone. No vague sad posts, no cryptic quotes, just erasure. They vanished from my digital world as if they'd never existed. When the buzzing started, texts from mutual friends, curious and nosy, I kept my replies short. Yeah, I'm fine. They chose each other. I chose peace. Then I'd change the subject. Hey, you watching the game tonight? Some friends pressed wanting the details. Those ones faded from my life too. The ones who stayed understood silence was my only boundary. Days blurred. I cleaned my car until it gleamed, reorganized my toolbox, signed up for an online certification course I'd put off for years. The gym became my anchor. Where before I went 3 times a week now, I went every day. I liked the discipline, the pain I could control. Muscles burned, sweat poured. But unlike betrayal, this pain built me instead of breaking me. One evening, wiping sweat from my brow, I remembered something that now felt like a warning I had ignored. Junior year of college. Lena and I had worked together on a project for a marketing class. I spent nights drafting slides, refining strategy. When it came time to present, Lena took the lead, my notes in her hand, my words on her lips. She dazzled the room, claimed credit with a grin, and I stood silently beside her, convincing myself it was fine. She was my best friend. We were a team. But standing in that motel room months later, the memory soured. It wasn't fine. It had never been fine. Lena had been rehearsing for this role her whole life, stealing pieces of me until she could step fully into my place. And Matthew, he had been too blind or too willing to notice. I sat on the edge of the motel bed that night, the hum of the air conditioner in my ears, and whispered to myself, they didn't break me. They broke the version of me that needed them. The strings were cut, and for the first time I was learning to move without them. Weeks passed. Silence became my companion. I worked, studied, lifted, slept. Life settled into a rhythm that was sharp, clean, and mine. But silence has a way of cracking when people insist on filling it. It started with Dave, one of the few friends who hadn't chosen sides. One afternoon, he sent me a screenshot from Lena's Instagram story. a quote in bold letters. Loyalty is rare. Don't test me. I stared at it for a long moment before replying simply, noted. He messaged back, weird vibe, huh? I didn't answer. Weird didn't cover it. It was a mask slipping. A week later, another update came. Ran into them at the bar, Dave wrote. She wouldn't let Matthew speak. Cut him off every time he opened his mouth. Honestly. She looked scary. I could almost see it, Lena's hand clamped on his arm, her voice sharp, her smile brittle. It didn't surprise me. Lena had always needed control. Matthew just hadn't realized until now that when she got it, she never let go. The irony was heavy, almost laughable. He had traded my quiet steadiness for her chaos, and now he was drowning in it. But I didn't laugh. I didn't even smile. Instead, I felt a strange distance, like I was watching a play from the back row. Their lives continued on stage. I had already left the theater. Still, pieces of their downfall slipped through the cracks. Stacy, once Lena's closest confidant, called me late at night, her voice hushed. Isa, have you talked to Matthew lately? No, I said flatly. You should know. Lana's changed. She made him delete all his female friends from social media, even me. She checks his phone constantly. At Sarah's party, she screamed at him for talking to a coworker. He looked small. I've never seen him like that. I stayed quiet. The pause stretched so long I could hear her shift uncomfortably on the line. Isa, it's bad, she pressed. He's miserable. I don't think he knows how to get out. Finally, I spoke. He made his choice, and I made mine. But don't you feel anything pity, anger? No. My tone was calm, almost detached. It's not my business anymore. She sighed in frustration. I thought you'd want to know. I thanked her politely before hanging up. My heart rate hadn't even changed. But when I lay down that night, staring at the ceiling, a thought whispered through me like a draft. Lena never wanted Matthew. Not really. She wanted me gone. She wanted to win. And winning for her didn't mean happiness. It meant possession. The cracks in their perfect mask were spreading. Soon it wouldn't just crumble, it would shatter. And for the first time, I wondered if they might try to drag me back into the wreckage when it did. It began with a text from an unknown number. Isa, it's me. Please don't block this. I'm sorry. I need to talk. I stared at it for a long time before deleting it. My thumb didn't tremble. My pulse didn't quicken. Just delete. Gone. 2 days later, another. I made a mistake. You were the best thing I ever had. Please, Isa. Just one conversation. Delete, block, silence. But desperation is persistent. The messages came faster, sometimes late at night, sometimes first thing in the morning. All from different numbers, each one chipping away at the bravado he had once worn so proudly. Then one evening my phone rang. Unknown caller. Normally I'd ignore it, but something in me pressed accept. Hello, my voice was calm. On the other end, ragged breathing. Then a broken sob. Isa. Oh God. Thank you for picking up. It was Matthew. His words tumbled over themselves, choked with panic. She threw a lamp at the wall. Said I was lying, said I was cheating. I swear I wasn't. She checks my phone every hour, Isa. She won't let me leave the apartment without her. Please. I just need a place to go. Just for tonight. Please. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the wall. His terror was real. I could hear it in the crack of his voice. But all I felt was stillness. No, I said simply. Silence. Then a shaky laugh, disbelief, dripping from it. What Isa? She's dangerous. She's not who I thought. You chose her, I cut in my voice flat. You chose fire over peace. Don't call me now because you're burned. His voice sharpened with anger, desperation, curdling into rage. You're cruel, heartless. I thought you were different. You're just bitter because she was better than you. I pulled the phone slightly away from my ear until his shouting dwindled into static. When I pressed it back, I answered evenly. You're right. She is better at showing you exactly who you are, and now you both deserve each other. He sucked in a breath, a sound between a sob and a growl. You're cold. Goodbye, Matthew. I ended the call. For a moment, I sat in silence, staring at the dark screen. Then, without hesitation, I blocked the number. The room was still, my heartbeat steady. No tears, no trembling, just peace. For months, I had feared this moment, imagined what I'd say if he ever begged for me back. I thought anger would flood me, or pity would soften me. But instead there was nothing, a hollow kind of freedom. The last thread had snapped, and I realized with startling clarity that my story wasn't tied to theirs anymore. It was mine, entirely mine. Months drifted by, carried on the steady rhythm of a life that finally belonged to me. I didn't hear from Matthew again, not directly, but whispers floated my way. Screenshots. stories. Their perfect facade had shattered completely. Friends told me Lena had started policing his every move, that she humiliated him in public, accused him of cheating if he so much as looked at another woman, that he stopped going out, stopped laughing, stopped being anything but her possession. Some called it karma. Some even asked if I felt vindicated. But I didn't. Karma implies satisfaction, a sense of winning. What I felt was quieter, emptier, like watching storm clouds roll over a town you no longer lived in. I didn't need to win, I only needed peace. And peace was loud in its own way. It echoed in the silence of my apartment where no one belittled me for my choices. It rang in the clink of weights at the gym, in the sting of sore muscles I built for myself, not for anyone else. It lingered in the emails confirming new projects, certifications, doors I opened, because I finally stopped waiting for others to hold them for me. One night, months later, I took a long walk through the city. The streets glowed with warm lamplight, the air carrying the faint hum of traffic. I stopped at a quiet bridge and leaned against the railing, watching the water ripple beneath. Once I would have imagined Matthew standing beside me or Lena laughing behind me. Once I would have pictured the life I thought was perfect. But in that moment, alone under the streetlight, I felt something richer, something that no betrayal could take away. Freedom. I closed my eyes and let the night air fill my lungs. The chaos they lived in was no longer mine to carry. I whispered into the dark not for them, but for myself. Peace was louder than their noise, and it was mine.